The moment Serena Whitmore saw the butterfly pin, her entire world shattered into pieces she didn't know how to reassemble. She stood frozen in the doorway of the mountain lodge, snow melting in her dark hair, her designer coat dripping onto the worn wooden floor. Before her, illuminated only by the crackling fireplace, stood the man she had fired exactly 6 hours ago. Declan Ashford held a sleeping child in his arms. A little girl, perhaps 5 years old, with chestnut curls pressed against his shoulder and a worn stuffed rabbit clutched tightly in her small fist. But it wasn't the child that made Serena's blood run cold. It was the pin on his collar, a small enamel butterfly, its delicate wings painted in shades of purple and gold. She knew that pin intimately. She had purchased it herself 3 years ago at a craft fair in Boulder. She had given it to a kindergarten teacher who had transformed her little brother's difficult first year of school into something magical. A teacher who had died in a car accident 2 years ago. The same accident that had triggered the phone call her father received moments before collapsing from a massive heart attack. The same week their family home had burned to the ground, taking her father and 7-year-old brother with it. Outside, the blizzard howled against the frost-covered windows, like a wounded animal seeking shelter. Inside, Serena could hear nothing but the thunder of her own pulse echoing in her ears. "Ms. Whitmore." Declan's voice was flat, carefully controlled, but his arms instinctively tightened around his sleeping daughter. "I certainly didn't expect to see you here." She couldn't speak. Her eyes remained locked on that butterfly, that impossible butterfly, catching the dancing firelight like a tiny beacon from a past she had tried desperately to bury. "The pin," she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. "Where did you get that pin?" Declan's expression shifted subtly. Something raw and unguarded flickered across his handsome features before he could suppress it completely. He glanced down at the butterfly on his collar, and when he looked back at Serena, his dark eyes held a grief so profound it seemed bottomless. "It belonged to my wife," he said quietly, careful not to wake the child in his arms. Elise. She was a kindergarten teacher at Meadowbrook Elementary. One of her students gave it to her about a month before the accident. The room tilted dangerously. Serena reached for the door frame to steady herself, her knuckles turning white against the aged wood. Elise Ashford. Miss Elise, who had worn cheerful flower print dresses and smelled like vanilla extract, who had patiently taught Jamie to write his name in careful letters, who had sent home finger-painted butterflies and encouraging notes about his remarkable progress. Miss Elise, who had died on a frozen highway 2 years ago, rushing to a meeting that would prove to be her death sentence. And just 2 days later, Serena's father and brother had perished in a fire that authorities had dismissed as a tragic gas leak accident. "The student," Serena heard herself say, the words feeling foreign on her tongue. "The one who gave her that pin. Was his name Jamie?" Now it was Declan's turn to freeze completely. His daughter stirred against his chest, murmuring something unintelligible about butterflies, and he automatically adjusted his protective hold on her. But his eyes never left Serena's pale face. "How could you possibly know that name?" "Because Jamie was my brother." The words emerged broken, jagged-edged. "He died 2 years ago, in a fire that destroyed our family home, along with my father, exactly 2 days after your wife's accident on that icy highway." The silence that followed was absolute and suffocating. Even the fire seemed to hold its breath, its flames momentarily still. Then every light in the lodge went out simultaneously. The power died with a sharp, decisive click, plunging them into complete darkness, broken only by the warm orange glow of the fireplace. Somewhere deeper in the lodge, a backup generator coughed reluctantly to life, providing dim emergency lighting in the hallway beyond. But their room remained wrapped in dancing shadows. "Daddy?" The little girl's voice was sleepy and confused, muffled against his shoulder. "Why did everything get dark?" It's perfectly okay, Maisie. Declan's voice softened immediately, all his tension channeled into protective gentleness for his child. Just a power outage from the storm. We're completely safe. Maisie lifted her head slowly from his shoulder, blinking in the flickering firelight. Her eyes, the same warm brown as her father's, found Serena standing rigid and pale by the door. Daddy, who's that lady standing there? She looks like she's hurting really bad inside. Serena opened her mouth to respond, but no words would come. She was still reeling, still desperately trying to process the impossible web of connections that had just revealed itself in this remote mountain lodge. This man she had coldly dismissed from his job, this innocent child clutching a worn rabbit, this pin, her brother, her father, a beloved teacher who had been a bright light during the darkest period of their lives. All of it somehow tragically intertwined. This is Ms. Whitmore, Declan said carefully, measuring each word. She's someone Daddy used to work with at the company. Whitmore? Maisie's small face scrunched adorably in deep thought. Then it brightened with sudden recognition. Like Mr. Theodore. Mommy used to talk about Mr. Theodore all the time. She always said he was the nicest businessman she ever met in her whole life. She said he kept candy in his coat pockets just for children. The casual mention of her father's name hit Serena like a physical blow to her chest. Theodore Whitmore had indeed kept butterscotch candies in his jacket pockets, a cherished habit inherited from his own father, a sweet tradition he had hoped someday to pass on to grandchildren he would never live to meet. Yes, Serena managed through the tightness in her throat. Like Mr. Theodore, he was my father. Maisie's brown eyes went wide with innocent curiosity. Was? Did he go up to heaven like my mommy did? The question was so innocent, so heartbreakingly matter-of-fact, that Serena felt hot tears burning behind her eyes for the first time in 2 years. She had not cried since the funerals. She had not allowed herself that perceived weakness. But this child, this small human being who had already learned the brutal arithmetic of loss at such a tender age, was systematically dismantling her carefully constructed defenses without even trying. Yes, she whispered, he went to heaven. Maisie nodded with surprising solemnity, accepting this information with the grace of someone who understood grief far too well for her age. Then she reached out one small hand toward Serena, her fingers stretching across the space between them. It's okay to feel really sad. Daddy always says that sadness is just love with nowhere to go anymore. But maybe your love can come stay with us instead. We have lots of room in our hearts for more love. 6 hours earlier, Serena had sat alone in her corner office on the 40th floor of the Whitmore building, watching the Denver skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. And she had felt absolutely nothing when she terminated Declan Ashford's employment. She had examined the numbers with clinical detachment. The Johnson account, their most significant client relationship, had received financial projections containing critical calculation errors. Someone had to bear responsibility. Someone had to face consequences. And Declan's name appeared prominently on every file. He had tried desperately to explain. She hadn't permitted him even that small dignity. Results are the only thing that matters in business, Mr. Ashford, she had said, her voice as cold and unforgiving as the winter wind howling outside her windows. And your results have cost us our most important client relationship. He had stood then, slowly gathering his wounded dignity around him like protective armor, and paused meaningfully at her office door. Someday, Miss Whitmore, you'll finally understand that some things in life matter infinitely more than spreadsheets and profit margins. She had dismissed his comment as the bitter, predictable words of a failed employee unable to accept responsibility. After security had escorted him from the building, she had discovered something unexpected hidden in her father's old mahogany desk. A small USB drive concealed in a locked drawer she had never thought to open, accompanied by a handwritten note in Theodore's distinctive script. Serena, If you're reading this letter, I didn't get the chance to tell you in time. Harrison Garrison is not the man you believe him to be. Whatever happens, don't trust him with anything. Harrison Garrison, senior board member. Her father's longtime business partner and supposed friend. The same man who had called her personal line just minutes after Declan's termination, asking with barely concealed urgency whether she intended to bring her laptop to the executive summit. Now standing in this fire-lit room with Maisie's small hand reaching toward her like an offering of grace, Serena wondered if she had ever truly understood anything about her own life. "We should probably discuss sleeping arrangements," Declan said, his voice professionally neutral despite the surreal circumstances surrounding them. "Maisie will take the bed. I'll sleep on the floor near the fire." "And where does that leave me?" Serena asked. "There's a small couch by the window." He nodded toward the worn sofa. "Unless you'd prefer to wait in the lobby, hoping another room becomes available." They both understood no other room would become available tonight. The lodge manager had been absolutely clear about that unfortunate reality. The blizzard had stranded dozens of desperate travelers. The annual winter festival had filled every available accommodation within a 50-mile radius. This single room, with its functioning fireplace and backup heating system, represented the last available shelter from the deadly storm. Serena looked at the narrow couch, at the comfortable bed, at the man she had professionally destroyed with a single cold signature, and the innocent child who had lost her mother to a tragedy that somehow connected directly to Serena's own shattered family. "The couch will be fine," she said quietly. But even as she watched Declan tenderly tuck his daughter beneath quilts that smelled of cedar and wood smoke, even as the fire painted hypnotic shadows across the rough-hewn walls, Serena knew with certainty that sleep would not come easily tonight. Because hidden in her leather bag was a laptop with a rapidly dying battery, and stored on that laptop was the mysterious USB drive her father had left behind, its secrets still unrevealed. The fire crackled and popped. The wind screamed its fury against the windows. And somewhere out there in the deadly storm, Serena felt absolutely certain that something dark was methodically closing in on them. She did not sleep at all that endless night. By morning, the relentless blizzard had buried the entire world beneath a thick blanket of pristine white silence. Serena stood motionless at the frost-covered window, watching the snow continue falling in dense curtains that obscured everything beyond 20 feet. The lodge's crowded parking lot had completely disappeared beneath drifts. The mountain road was utterly invisible. They were truly and completely trapped. Behind her, she heard Maisie's voice, remarkably bright despite the gray morning light filtering weakly through the clouds. "Daddy, my tummy is making hungry noises. Is there any breakfast?" "The lodge is serving food in the main hall," Declan replied. "But we need to bundle up first. The hallways are freezing cold." "Can the lady with the sad eyes come with us?" Serena turned slowly from the window. Maisie was sitting up in the rumpled bed, her beloved stuffed rabbit tucked securely under one arm, her sleep-tangled curls framing a face full of innocent curiosity about the strange woman sharing their room. "Ms. Whitmore can certainly decide for herself," Declan said carefully, his tone measured. His eyes met Serena's across the small room, and in them she recognized the same internal conflict she herself felt. They were complete strangers bound together by bizarre circumstance. Professional enemies, perhaps, given the brutal events at the office, but also somehow mysteriously connected by invisible threads of shared tragedy that neither of them fully understood yet. "I'll join you," Serena said. "I desperately need coffee." What she truly needed were answers to impossible questions, but strong coffee would be an acceptable start. They ate breakfast in near-complete silence, the oppressive weight of unasked questions hanging heavy between the two adults. Maisie colored contentedly in a book provided by the lodge staff, blissfully unaware of the tension surrounding her. Finally, Declan deliberately set down his fork, his expression serious. You told me Jamie died 2 days after Elise, in a house fire. Serena nodded, unable to speak past the sudden tightness in her throat. The same fire that killed your father? Another wordless nod. Her throat felt constricted. I'm deeply sorry, Declan said, and unlike the countless others who had offered hollow condolences, he genuinely sounded like he meant every word. Elise talked about Jamie constantly. She always said he was the brightest student she'd ever had the privilege to teach. She said his smile could light up an entire room. Serena's hands trembled visibly around her coffee cup. He did have that gift. He was only 7 years old. He desperately wanted to become an astronaut when he grew up. Elise would have been completely devastated to learn what happened to him. Declan's voice was quiet. She carried that butterfly pin everywhere after Jamie gave it to her. She said it reminded her that even the smallest gestures could mean the entire world to someone who needed kindness. How exactly did she die? Serena asked. The accident. What actually happened that day? Declan's expression hardened with carefully controlled pain, the look of someone who had rehearsed this particular tragedy far too many times. December 15th, 2 years ago this month, black ice on Highway 72 heading into the mountains. She was rushing to get to an emergency meeting, lost control of her car on a sharp curve. The investigators said she died instantly. An emergency meeting? Serena frowned. For what purpose? That's the part I've never been able to understand. Declan shook his head slowly. She received an urgent email that morning, a mandatory summons to a Whitmore and Associates location outside the city. She wasn't even originally supposed to attend. A colleague was sick with the flu, and Elise volunteered to take her place at the last minute. Serena's blood ran cold. What was the colleague's name? Catherine Mills. She worked directly in your father's executive office, some kind of special administrative role. Catherine Mills. The name immediately sparked something in Serena's memory. Her father had mentioned Catherine exactly once in the final weeks before his death. He had cryptically said she was helping him with a special confidential project, something important that he couldn't discuss yet. Did Elise ever mention what the meeting was actually about? Never. The email just stated it was extremely urgent. Mandatory attendance required. Declan's eyes narrowed with old frustration. But here's the thing that's haunted me for 2 years. After she died, I tried desperately to find official records of that meeting. I contacted your company's HR department. I spoke with legal. Everyone told me the same thing. No meeting was ever officially scheduled for that date. No email was ever legitimately sent through company systems. As far as Whitmore and Associates was concerned, my wife drove to her death for something that simply didn't exist. The room seemed to tilt dangerously. Serena gripped the edge of the table hard. Someone deliberately lured her there, she whispered. I believed that for 2 agonizing years, but I could never prove anything. Declan leaned forward intently. Your father's USB drive. What's actually on it? I honestly don't know yet. I haven't opened the files. The battery was critically low last night. The lodge has generator power in the main building. We need to see what's on that drive immediately. They returned to the room together with Maisie, who settled contentedly by the warm fire with her coloring book and Mr. Whiskers for company. Serena plugged her laptop into the single working outlet near the bathroom and inserted the mysterious USB drive with trembling fingers. The files loaded with agonizing slowness. But when they finally appeared on the glowing screen, Serena felt the entire foundation of her world crack open beneath her feet. Emails. Dozens of incriminating emails, all originating from Harrison Garrison's official company account. Secret meeting invitations sent without any authorization. Suspicious financial transfers to hidden offshore accounts. Internal memos discussing liability elimination and permanent problem resolution. And one particular email dated December 14th, the day before Elise died. The subject line read, Mills situation, final solution. The email's chilling content was brief and damning. Meeting tomorrow confirmed, location secure. Once this is handled, the Whitmore problem resolves itself naturally. Catherine Mills, Declan breathed, his face ashen. She was the actual target. Elise died in her place by pure chance. They continued scrolling through the files with growing horror. More damning documents appeared, detailed financial records showing extensive unauthorized transactions. A formal whistleblower report filed by Catherine Mills, meticulously detailing Harrison Garrison's massive embezzlement scheme. Secret meeting minutes from a board session Serena had never been informed about, discussing strategies for removing Theodore Whitmore from leadership. And then, at the very bottom of the files, an audio recording with a timestamp from the morning of her father's death. Serena clicked play. Her father's beloved voice filled the small room, and she had to press both hands against her mouth to stifle the sob that rose in her throat. Harrison, I need an explanation. Why did that kindergarten teacher receive a meeting invitation from our company? I never authorized any such meeting. Garrison's smooth voice responded, dismissive and confident. It was merely a system error, Theodore. Nothing whatsoever to worry about. A system error doesn't kill innocent people, Harrison. That young woman is dead because of an email sent from our server. I'm going to conduct a full investigation. I'm going to find out exactly what happened and why. Theodore, I strongly advise against pursuing this matter any further. Some things are much better left completely alone. Is that meant to be a threat? A long, tense pause. Then Garrison's voice again, cold as ice now. Consider it a friendly warning for your own good and for your family's continued safety. The recording ended abruptly with a sharp click. Serena's analytical mind raced, piecing together the horrific timeline with growing certainty. December 15th. First, Elise had died on that frozen highway, rushing to a meeting that had never legitimately existed. Theodore received notification of the accident. He started asking dangerous questions, directly confronting Garrison, and within 48 short hours, the Whitmore family home was completely engulfed in flames. The fire, she whispered. It wasn't an accident either, was it? It happened exactly 2 days after Elise died. Declan's face had gone completely white. 2 days. December 17th. The fire department said it was a gas leak, a tragic accident. But my father had just confronted Garrison about Elise's death. He was threatening to investigate. Her voice broke with emotion. Jamie was home sick from school that day. I came back early because I'd forgotten my laptop. I found them in Dad's study. The smoke was everywhere. I tried desperately to reach Jamie, to pull him out, but the ceiling collapsed directly on top of us. She touched her neck unconsciously, where her high collar concealed the extensive scar tissue that spread from her throat down across her left shoulder. Garrison arranged my family's murders to keep my father permanently quiet. He killed a 7-year-old boy to cover up one murder with another. Among the files was a series of encrypted messages between Harrison Garrison and someone identified only by the initials MG. The messages discussed the Whitmore problem and various permanent solutions. MG, Declan murmured. Who is that? Serena scrolled through her father's detailed investigation notes. Marcus Garrison, Harrison's younger brother, he was involved in many of Harrison's shadowy real estate dealings over the years. My father suspected Marcus was the one who actually executed Harrison's dirty work. The fire? Marcus was the one who set the fire. According to these notes, Marcus attempted to flee the country about a year ago, but was stopped by customs agents. He's been essentially trapped here ever since. If he's scared enough, cornered enough, he might finally be willing to testify. A sudden cry of distress pierced the tense silence. Both adults whirled around to see Maisie slumped weakly against the couch, her small face flushed an alarming shade of red, her entire body trembling with violent shivers. Declan rushed immediately to her side, his face twisted with fear. Maisie? Maisie, sweetheart, what's wrong? He pressed his palm against her burning forehead, and his expression shifted to pure terror. She's burning up. Has to be at least 103 degrees. The roads are completely blocked, Serena said, already moving toward the bathroom. We can't possibly get her to a hospital tonight. Then what do we do? Serena grabbed clean towels from the bathroom rack and quickly filled the basin with cool water. My mother was a registered nurse before she walked out on us. I know how to handle childhood fevers. Help me with this. For the next several hours, they worked together in desperate coordination. Cool compresses carefully applied to Maisie's burning forehead. Tiny sips of water coaxed between her dry lips. Gentle words and soft songs to keep the frightened child as calm as possible while her fever raged. Declan sang lullabies in a voice rough with barely controlled fear, old songs his wife had taught him. And Serena found herself telling elaborate stories about magical butterfly doctors who flew through cotton candy clouds on golden wings, healing sick children throughout the land with enchanted sparkle dust. At 3 in the morning, the fever finally broke. Maisie's eyes fluttered slowly open. Daddy? Miss Serena? You're both still here? We're right here, sweetheart. Declan's voice cracked with overwhelming relief. We're not going anywhere. We're right here with you. I had the most wonderful dream about Mommy, Maisie said, her small voice weak but remarkably clear. She was in a beautiful garden full of butterflies, and Grandpa Theodore was there with her, and a little boy who told me his name was Jamie. They were all together and happy. Serena's breath caught painfully in her chest. They said you two are supposed to find each other, Maisie continued sleepily. They said broken pieces can fit together and make something brand new and beautiful. A tear slid slowly down Serena's cheek, the first tear she had allowed herself in 2 endless years. This brave little girl, fighting through fever and loss, still somehow believed in love and connection and healing. Your mommy sounds very wise, Serena whispered. She was the best mommy in the whole wide world. Maisie reached up and touched Serena's wet cheek with infinite gentleness. Don't cry, Miss Serena. Mommy says the sad parts are just the price we have to pay for all the good parts. And the good parts are always worth it. Declan's eyes met Serena's over his daughter's small head. Something profound shifted between them in that moment. Not romance, not yet. Something deeper and more fundamental. An unspoken recognition that they were fighting the same invisible war, carrying the same unbearable wounds, seeking the same elusive justice. We need to stop him, Serena said quietly. Garrison, before he destroys anyone else. How? Before she could answer, the unmistakable sound of helicopter blades cut through the howling wind outside. Serena rushed to the window. A sleek, black, military-style aircraft was descending rapidly through the swirling snow, landing in the lodge's small courtyard. The door slid open. Harrison Garrison stepped out onto the snow, flanked by 2 large men in dark overcoats. And he looked directly up at her window with cold, knowing eyes. Garrison wasted no time with pleasantries or pretense. Within the hour, he had cornered Serena alone in the shadowy hallway directly outside her room. I know you have Theodore's files, he said, his voice low and unmistakably dangerous. I know you've been talking extensively with Ashford. Whatever you think you've discovered, you're completely wrong. I have no idea what you're talking about, Serena replied, keeping her expression carefully neutral. Don't play games with me, little girl. Garrison stepped closer, his expensive cologne filling the narrow space between them. Your father tried to be clever, too. Look exactly where that got him. What exactly are you saying? I'm saying Theodore had a dangerously weak heart. Stress kills men like that with surprising ease. House fires happen every day. Car accidents occur constantly on icy mountain roads. His pale eyes were cold as Arctic ice, especially to people who insist on sticking their noses where they absolutely don't belong. Behind Serena, the room door opened with a soft click. Declan stepped out into the hallway, Maisie sleeping peacefully in his protective arms. "Is there some kind of problem here?" Declan's voice was pure steel. Garrison's politician's smile returned instantly, but it never reached his calculating eyes. "No problem whatsoever. Just reminding Miss Whitmore that some secrets are much better left permanently buried, along with the people who foolishly kept them." He turned and walked away down the dim hallway, his expensive shoes clicking against the wooden floor, leaving the threat hanging in the frozen air like poison. Maisie's small, sleepy voice broke the tense silence. "Daddy, that man has really scary eyes, like the big bad wolf in my storybook." "Yes, sweetheart," Declan said quietly. "He certainly does." That night, huddled by the fire, they made their plan. In 3 days, the roads would finally be cleared. In 3 days, the Whitmore and Associates annual charity gala would take place at the Denver Regency Hotel. 500 influential guests would attend. Media, politicians, celebrities, and FBI agents who had been quietly investigating Garrison's activities for 2 years without sufficient evidence to move. Now they had evidence, and they had a witness Garrison didn't know about: his own brother Marcus. The grand ballroom of the prestigious Denver Regency Hotel blazed with light and luxury. 500 people filled the magnificent space: business leaders, politicians, media personalities, the cream of Denver society, dressed in their absolute finest. Champagne glasses glittering under massive crystal chandeliers. Harrison Garrison stood near the elevated stage, radiating confidence and power. He had spent the past 3 days believing he had won, believing Serena was too frightened and isolated to act, believing his dark secrets were still completely safe. He was catastrophically wrong. Serena entered through the ornate main doors, and the entire room fell instantly silent. For 2 years, she had hidden herself away. High-neck blouses, carefully draped scarves, protective armor against the world's pity and morbid curiosity. But tonight, she wore a stunning midnight blue gown that bared her shoulders completely. That revealed the extensive scar running from her neck down across her collarbone, her permanent badge of survival, her proof that she had tried to save her brother, even when she couldn't. Shocked gasps rippled through the elegant crowd. Cameras flashed continuously, but Serena kept walking forward, her eyes fixed on the stage ahead. Garrison moved quickly toward her, his smile fixed firmly in place. "Serena, what a dramatic entrance. Perhaps you should sit down. You've clearly been through quite an ordeal." She ignored him completely, climbed the stage steps with measured grace, took the microphone from its stand. "Thank you all for coming tonight. I have an important announcement to make. But it's not about charitable giving. It's about truth." Garrison's practiced smile faltered visibly. "Serena, this really isn't the appropriate time." 2 years ago," Serena continued, her voice carrying with perfect clarity to every corner of the vast ballroom, "my father, Theodore Whitmore, died. The official verdict was a heart attack. 2 days before that, a kindergarten teacher named Elise Ashford died in a car accident. The official verdict was black ice." She paused deliberately, letting the heavy silence build. "I believe those verdicts completely. I was wrong." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Garrison's face had gone noticeably pale. "I have evidence that both deaths were carefully orchestrated, that my father was murdered because he discovered financial crimes within this company, that Elise Ashford was killed because she was mistaken for a witness who was about to expose those crimes." She pressed a button on the remote in her hand. The massive screen behind her flickered to life. Theodore Whitmore's recorded voice filled the ballroom. A system error doesn't kill people, Harrison. Garrison's smooth voice responded, consider it a warning. For your own good. For your family's safety. The crowd erupted in shocked exclamations. Phones appeared everywhere. The media surged forward, shouting questions. But Serena wasn't finished. There's more. My father was investigating. He was going to expose the truth to authorities. So 48 hours after Elise Ashford died, someone deliberately set fire to our family home. My father died in that fire. My 7-year-old brother Jamie died in that fire. She touched her scar. I survived, barely, and I've spent 2 years hiding these scars because I was ashamed, because I couldn't save my brother, because I thought if I just kept my head down and worked hard enough, I could somehow outrun the grief. Her voice strengthened. I was wrong about that too. You can't outrun grief. You can only walk directly through it. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you find people willing to walk beside you. She looked toward the back of the room, where Declan stood with Maisie safely in his arms. The little girl waved enthusiastically. The fire wasn't an accident. It was deliberate arson, and I can prove it. A side door opened. 2 FBI agents entered, escorting a handcuffed man, a man who bore a striking resemblance to Harrison Garrison, but younger and more broken. This is Marcus Garrison, Serena announced. Harrison's brother. He has something to say. Marcus stepped forward, his face twisted with shame and visible relief. I did what Harrison asked. The fire. He told me it would just be a warning. I didn't know anyone was inside. I didn't know about the little boy. A cry rose from somewhere in the crowd. I've lived with this for 2 years, Marcus continued, his voice cracking. I can't carry it anymore. My brother arranged everything. He killed Theodore Whitmore. He arranged the accident that killed that teacher. He ordered me to set a fire that killed a child. He looked at his brother with hollow, haunted eyes. I'm done protecting you, Harrison. I'm done. Garrison lunged toward the stage, his composure finally cracking completely. This is all lies. This woman has poisoned my brother against me. She's clearly mentally unstable. But the FBI agents were already moving. One stepped directly in front of Garrison, badge raised. Harrison Garrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and murder in the first degree. You have the right to remain silent. The handcuffs clicked around his wrist with a sound of finality. Garrison struggled, shouted, threatened, but it was completely over. 500 witnesses. Cameras recording every moment, his empire crumbling in real time. As they led him toward the exit, Garrison twisted to look back at Serena, with hatred burning in his eyes. You don't know what you've done. Your father was weak. He would have destroyed this company with his bleeding heart. Serena stepped to the edge of the stage. Her voice was steady and clear. My father believed that business was fundamentally about people, not profits, people. He was building a company where employees didn't have to choose between their careers and their families. A company where being human wasn't considered a weakness. She paused, letting the words resonate. You called him weak, but he was brave enough to stand up to you. He was brave enough to try to protect people, even when it cost him everything he loved. Her eyes locked onto Garrison's. That's not weakness. That's strength you'll never understand. The FBI agents pulled him through the door. The ballroom erupted, but Serena only saw one thing. Declan and Maisie pushing through the crowd toward her. Maisie in her purple party dress, clutching Mr. Whiskers. Declan with tears streaming down his face. She stepped down from the stage and walked toward them. The crowd parted respectfully. When she reached them, Maisie threw herself into Serena's arms. You did it! You caught the bad guy! You're like a princess who saved herself! Serena knelt down, her designer gown pooling on the floor. I had help. Your daddy found the important clues. And your mommy helped too. She was so brave, Maisie. She was helping people right up until the very end. Maisie's eyes shone. Mommy was a hero, the best kind of hero, the kind who does the right thing even when no one is watching. Declan knelt beside them. For a long moment, none of them spoke. They just stayed there, three people bound by tragedy and transformed by it, while the chaos swirled around them. "Thank you," Declan finally said. His voice was rough. "For Elise, for giving her justice." "Thank you," Serena replied, "for giving me courage." "Daddy," Maisie said suddenly, "can Miss Serena be in our family? She needs people. We have room." Declan's surprised laugh was the most beautiful sound Serena had heard in 2 years. "I think that's up to Miss Serena." Serena looked at this child who had lost so much and somehow remained full of love. She looked at Declan, who had every reason to hate her, and chose compassion instead. "I would like that very much," she whispered, "more than anything." The Cedarwood Mountain Lodge looked entirely different in summer. Wildflowers carpeted the meadows in vibrant colors. The creek that had been frozen solid now bubbled merrily past the main building. Birds sang in trees that had been bare and snow-laden exactly 1 year ago. Serena stood at the window of their room, the same room where everything had changed, watching Maisie chase butterflies through the garden below. The little girl was 6 now, taller, her hair longer, but still clutching Mr. Whiskers as she ran, arms wrapped around Serena from behind. Declan rested his chin on her shoulder. "She's going to sleep well tonight," he said. "All that running. She's already asked me to tell the butterfly doctor story 3 times. You created a monster with that story." "I created a tradition." Serena turned in his arms. "Speaking of which, I have something for you." She pulled out a small velvet box. "I know we said we'd take things slow, but I realized something at the board meeting last week." "The meeting where you announced the new family leave policy?" "Yes." Serena smiled. "I looked at all those employees, all those working parents, and I thought about what my father wanted, what Elise wanted, a world where you don't have to choose between career and family. And I don't want to wait anymore. I want to be brave." She opened the box. Inside were 2 rings and a small butterfly pin. "The rings are for us. The pin is for Maisie, so she'll always know she's part of something. Part of a family that includes everyone who loves her, including her first mommy." Declan's eyes glistened. "Serena, you don't have to answer now." "Yes, yes, yes, to everything." From below, Maisie's voice rang out. "Daddy, Miss Serena, come see. I caught a butterfly." They went to the window together. Maisie was cupping something carefully in her small hands. "It's purple," she shouted. "Like Mommy's pin." Declan's arm tightened around Serena. "Maybe she sent it." They went downstairs to join their daughter. When Maisie released the butterfly, all 3 watched it soar toward the sky. "Goodbye, butterfly," Maisie whispered. "Tell Mommy Elise we're okay. Tell her we're a family now." The butterfly circled twice, then disappeared into the flowers. Serena knelt and fastened the new butterfly pin to Maisie's dress. "Does this mean you're really my family now? What do you think?" Maisie considered this seriously. "I think family isn't about the same blood. It's about the same love. And we have so much love." "We do," Serena agreed. "More than we know what to do with." "I know what to do with it." Maisie grabbed both adults by the hand. "We share it, forever and ever. That's what families do." She pulled them toward the meadow, chattering about butterflies and weddings and flower girl dresses. Behind them, the lodge stood solid and welcoming. Above them, a single butterfly danced on the summer breeze, purple wings catching light like tiny stained glass windows. 3 people who had lost everything had found each other in a blizzard. Now, in summer's warmth, they had become whole. Garrison would spend his life in prison. Marcus had testified and received a reduced sentence. Catherine Mills had finally told her story. Justice had been served. Not perfectly. Nothing could bring back the dead, but the living could choose how to carry them forward. Maisie stopped in the meadow, looking up at both adults. I need to tell you something important. When I was sick at the lodge, I dreamed about Mommy Elise. Mr. Theodore was there, and Jamie. They were together in a garden. Serena's heart clenched. They said they sent you to find us, Miss Serena. They said we were supposed to be a family. Serena gathered the little girl into her arms. Thank you for telling me, Maisie. You're welcome. Maisie patted her back. Mommy says you're a good hugger. She's happy I have someone now. Declan wrapped his arms around both of them. There, surrounded by wildflowers and butterflies, 3 hearts beat as one. The broken pieces had finally become whole, not because they had forgotten their losses, but because they had found courage to love again, to trust again, to believe that even after the darkest winter, spring always returns. Maisie wriggled free and ran ahead. Serena and Declan followed, hand in hand. Behind them, the past rested quietly. The ghosts were at peace. Ahead, life waited, imperfect and beautiful and full of possibility, and that was more than enough. Families are not built from blood alone. They are built from choice, from courage, from the willingness to love even when love seems impossible. Serena learned this in a mountain lodge during the worst storm of her life, from a man she had wronged and a child who saw past her walls. She learned that scars are not shameful, that grief can become grace, that sometimes the worst moments lead directly to the best ones. And she learned that butterflies, like love, can survive even the deepest winter. They just need someone brave enough to believe in spring.